Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew, man? We're back. New Mr. Ballen. The Chinese government has confirmed the paranormal. You believe in the paranormal? Or you are we talking about because every time I see Mr. Ballen talking about paranormal, he's talking about aliens and shit, you know what I'm saying? But when growing up, I always thought a paranormal meant afterlife or seeing ghosts or spirits and stuff like that. But typically when he's speaking on it, he's talking about aliens, spaceships, extraterrestrials, you know what I'm saying?
Stuff like that.
Yeah. So, hey, man, with that being said, before we get into it today, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
Y'all go show some love support to the other channels, man. Go check out some other content that y'all might have been looking for, might be missing. Y'all missing out on the trailer reactions. We do trailers. Other stuff that we cannot fit on this channel anymore just because we upload so much is over there on Extra Dose. Also, some of the stuff y'all highly request us to do is over there on Patreon. So y'all go show some love support for further content. But also, if you enjoyed today's visuals,
like it in with a thumbs up.
But as always, let's hop into it. Let's check it out. Let's see what Mr. Ballen has in store with the Chinese government. Has confirmed the paranormal. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, real quick, I don't normally make announcements at the beginning of stories, but today is different because I have a massive announcement. Starting right now, today, the Mr. Ballen podcast that rose immediately to the top of the charts when we launched it in 2022 and then was scooped up by Amazon by the end of the year. Yeah, that show is now available on all podcast platforms and it is free. Now, don't worry if you've been listening to this podcast on Amazon Music. That's awesome. You can keep doing that because with your Prime membership, you will get Mr. Ballen podcast episodes 1 month earlier than everybody else, and it will be ad-free. But again, the show is on every other platform right now, and it really is free. So go ahead and follow the Mr. Ballen podcast, Strange, Dark, and Mysterious Stories on Amazon Music or wherever else you get your podcasts.
The exclusivity ain't there.
Today's story is about one of the most famous, potentially paranormal events of all time, except almost no Westerners have heard of it because it happened in China. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the Strange, Dark, and Mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please put the like button stapler in Jello. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications.
He been watching them folks put all that stuff in Jello. Well, they be putting in a balloon and candy and all that. You know what I'm talking about? You trash.
What the fuck?
Please put the like button stapler in Jello. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. Late on the evening of July 27th, 1977, a 21-year-old farmer named Huang Yanqiu walked down a wide, dusty road in the little farming village of Beigao, located in northern China. It had been a very hard day on the rice farm where Huang worked because they were all preparing for the autumn harvest. But even though Huang was totally exhausted and worn down, as he walked down this road, he was whistling an upbeat tune. Because for the first time in a long time, Huang was actually excited about the future. Huang had grown up in a poor family, and he hadn't even finished elementary school. He still lived with his parents in a tiny house, and basically every day of his life was the same. He got up at sunrise, he walked to work, he worked all day until he barely could even stand, and then he would walk home and he would go to bed. But the reason Huang was now feeling kind of excited about his future was because he had just gotten engaged to a beautiful girl in a neighboring village, and their plan was to get married after the autumn harvest. Huang was already hard at work, literally building them a house that they could move into after they got married. And in fact, on this particular night, that was where Huang was going. He was going to the property where he was in the middle of building this house, and he was going there not to work on the house anymore, but really just to admire his property, because again, he was just so excited about the future. Huang turned the corner, and his beautiful, half-constructed home came into focus. The foundation, the walls, and the ceiling were all complete. All he had left to do was put in the windows and the doors. And so Huang walked up and ran his hand over the beautiful brick he'd laid around the outside of the property. Brick was not cheap. He had worked extra hours to afford this brick. And so he was just so proud of it, and he ran his hand over it. And then he kind of stepped back and kind of imagined the house when it was all done. And then when he felt satisfied that he had seen enough, he just kind of nodded and turned and just continued walking back towards his home, his parents' home, which was only a few minutes away. When Huang got to his home, he went inside, and his mom already had a meal made for him. It was just some rice and veggies. And so Huang sat down and began eating, and then his parents came over, and they began chatting. And then, of course, the conversation shifted to Huang's upcoming marriage, because that's basically all Huang ever wanted to talk about. And then by about 10 p.m., Huang was so tired that he crawled into his bed, and he fell asleep almost immediately. The next morning, when Huang's parents woke up, they discovered that Huang was not in his bed. Now, this was not totally unusual because they knew their son was a really hard worker, and it wasn't unusual for him to wake up really, really early to head out to the farm to begin his workday. But a little while later, the workers at the rice farm where Huang worked, they saw Huang had not come to work. And because that was so out of character for him, one of the workers actually walked to Huang's parents' home to see if he was okay. And when Huang's mother found out her son had not shown up to work, she was really worried, but she told this worker, my son must have gone to the house he's building, go over there and see if he's there. But the worker from the rice farm went to Huang's property he was building, and nobody was there. And so when he came back and told Huang's mother, this sent her into a total panic. Because really for her, this was like completely out of character for her son. He would never miss work. He would never just disappear like this. Something was wrong. So Huang's mother sent this rice farm worker to go find her husband and tell him what was going on with Huang. And then in the meantime, Huang's mother just walked outside and began going door to door, asking neighbors if they knew where her son was and if they wouldn't mind coming out and helping her look. Now, at this time, the village of Beigao was a relatively small place where all the residents more or less knew each other. And so it did not take long for the news of Huang being missing to spread all across Beigao, and the community really came out in force to go look for him. And so by the afternoon, there were people on bikes riding all around, calling out for Huang. People were going to neighboring villages to see if he was there. Another group of villagers went to Huang's fiance's home, and they spoke to her, and she had no idea where Huang was. And so by about the early afternoon, when so many people couldn't find any leads to where Huang had gone, it became clear that really nobody had a clue what happened to him. Now, Beigao at the time was incredibly isolated. This is a small town where most of the people who live there don't have phones, they don't have cars, they ride their bikes everywhere, and there were no roads that connected Beigao to any other place. Now, there was a paved road that went through Beigao, but it actually just came to an end on the outskirts of Beigao. So there was just no way to go to other places, at least not efficiently. Basically, if you lived in Beigao at the time, there was a finite number of places you could go. And all these people that had gone out looking for Huang had searched all of those places, and Huang just was not there. And they discovered his bike was still leaning up against his parents' house, and his work clothes, which he wore basically every single day, were still folded up neatly inside of his room. And so wherever Huang was, he was on foot, and he was still in his pajamas. That night, Huang's parents would contact the village committee, which was basically like the governing body for Beigao, and the village committee decided that this was serious enough, because again, they're thinking, this is impossible, where is this guy? That they decided to contact the police. But when the police got this call, they did not launch an investigation right away because they had limited resources and there was no sign of foul play here. It was very weird that Huang was missing, but he was an adult, and if he wanted to go vanish somewhere, it was kind of like, okay, you're an adult, you can do that. And so Huang's family and the rest...
I think you should take any case of missing person.
Especially when, like, the their behavior, like
Yeah.
it's like this is not the norm.
Behavior
This
pattern.
is not something that he comes home, he goes to work, like the same routine, or he'll go see the house, whatever the case may be. I just seen my son, fixed him some veggies and rice. He ate with the bed. Like, that's out of the norm.
Yeah, because if there's any clues that you can lead upon, immediately that's where you can pick up on the traces of the clues. Yeah. The longer you wait, the more those clues start disappearing, and you can't trace certain things like you could if you hop on it fresh. You know what I'm saying? But what, like, listen to it, I'm like, but what
possibly could it be? Like, for him to just vanish
randomly
throughout the night?
Yeah, just randomly like that.
It was kind of like, okay, you're an adult, you can do that. And so Huang's family and the rest of the Beigao villagers were forced to just kind of wait and see if Huang came back. But over the next few days, Huang did not come back, and there was still no new information about what might have happened to him. Early on the morning of August 5th, so 8 days after Huang went missing, and still by this point there's no sign of him, the deputy director of the Beigao Village Committee came running up the road to Huang's parents' house and knocked on the door. When the door opened up, it was Huang's father, and the deputy director handed him a telegram he had just gotten and said, "Read it." And so Huang's father took the telegram and began reading it, and as he did, his eyes went wide, and then when he was done, he looked up and he was just so confused. The telegram had been sent 8 days earlier at around 9 a.m. on July 28th. So basically right around the time that Huang's family discovered Huang was missing was when this telegram was sent. But for whatever reason, the telegram had been very delayed. And so they were just receiving this telegram now, 8 days later. And the contents of this telegram made no sense. It said that just 9 hours after Huang had fallen asleep in his parents' home, he was discovered lying on the sidewalk in the middle of this bustling city called Nanjing, located 600 miles to the south of Beigao. Now, the reason Huang's father and the deputy director were so confused by this telegram was this was impossible. Remember, Huang does not have a car, so the only way he could get around was on foot or on his bike, and we know he left his bike by his house, so he's on foot and very likely in his pajamas. And what, he's going to go 600 miles? I mean, even if he walked the 30 miles to the nearest train station, 9 hours, because that's how much time it took from falling asleep to being discovered in the city, is not enough time to go the remaining 570 miles to Nanjing. So Huang's father and the deputy director, they talked about this, and they both decided that, this just can't be true. Clearly, somebody has mistaken some other person for Huang, because he cannot possibly be all the way in Nanjing. Now, this telegram said that Huang was being held in a deportation center in Shanghai, and so Huang's father and the deputy director decided they would send a telegram back to the sender at this deportation center and tell them, hey, if this really is Huang, he should have a very specific birthmark on his wrist. And so when they sent this telegram off, they fully expected to get one back that said, oh, our mistake, it wasn't him. But they got a reply relatively quickly, and it said, oh yeah, he's got that exact birthmark. It's definitely Huang, but he's very confused. He doesn't really know what's going on. And so somebody from your village has to go get him. Huang arrived back home in the middle of August, so about 2 weeks after he had gone missing. And as soon as he got there, his fiance and his parents were so happy to see him. And pretty soon, a steady stream of friends and neighbors and other family members began coming to Huang's house to talk to him, to hear his story, to hear about what happened. But Huang really didn't understand what had happened to him. And so mostly he just didn't answer any questions he got asked. He just kind of kept his head down and just kept saying, I don't know what happened. And then really when his family pressed him and said, you gotta tell us, this is so crazy, what happened? He would say, look, I'm gonna tell you what happened, but I don't even know if I can believe the things I'm gonna tell you. And so Huang would say, all he could remember was he went to bed in his own bed in Beigao. And then the next morning he woke up and he was laying on the sidewalk. And when he opened his eyes, he saw there was this big swimming pool, and then near it was a sign that said Nanjing. And so that was how he put together that he was in Nanjing. And then almost immediately, these two police officers wearing all white just kind of appeared out of nowhere, and they walked up to Huang, they scooped him up, and without really saying anything to him, they brought him to that deportation center in Shanghai, which is a place where people who seem confused or mentally ill would be sent in order to help them get home. And that was it. That was Huang's entire story, that he just basically woke up.
But what will make well, I guess because you see a pedestrian just laying around.
Yeah, just laying on the sidewalk.
But I was like, what will make the police want to approach him? But I guess because if it's not the norm.
Yeah.
Like here, if you just see somebody laying on the sidewalk, you just automatically assume that they're homeless, and you probably just keep going by your day.
Well, and I guess it depends on exactly where you're laying at as well.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're like just in the middle of the sidewalk while people, especially when it's like busy or
Well,
whatever
if
the case may be.
it's that damn busy, somebody saw you lay down or get there.
You would think.
Well, you a hoe.
Are you a hoe? You would think you a hoe, whatever. But if you don't even remember how you got there, and it's just kind of like.
But no, I'm just saying you might not remember, but hopefully somebody seen something.
Seen something, yeah. You a hoe.
If it's
yeah,
really that
so.
busy.
You would hope so.
I hope so.
In Nanjing with no idea how he got there. And so after he told his family, they all just kind of looked at him like, really? Like, that's what happened? That makes no sense. But Huang, I mean, he was completely lucid. He was explaining it really specifically and really simply. I mean, he looked and sounded exactly like he normally did, and he seemed very honest as he was telling the story. Over the next few weeks, Huang kind of reintegrated back into his life, but things just were not the same. People were now scared of him. I mean, kids literally ran away from him when they saw him because rumors were going around town that he himself, his body, was haunted or something. And so kids were scared of him, and other villagers would openly gossip about him right in front of him. I mean, even his beloved fiancée admitted to feeling really uncomfortable around him now. And while all of this was obviously very upsetting for Huang, he did also understand why people were acting this way. I mean, this is a very anomalous thing that's happened to him, and he did not have a good explanation for this totally insane event that he was a part of. And so he just kind of got it. And in fact, Huang himself was kind of terrified of himself. I mean, at night when he would go to bed, he would be terrified that the second he closed his eyes, he was going to be transported hundreds or thousands of miles away to some totally unknown place, and maybe this time he wouldn't even be able to get back again. But as the days wore on, Huang continued to wake up in his own bed in Beigao, which over time kind of made him feel more secure that whatever happened to him was a one-time thing and it's not going to happen again. However, Huang would be wrong. On September 8th, 1977, so 3 weeks after Huang had returned back home, he went to sleep in his bed in the village of Beigao, but when he woke up the next morning, he was not there. The first thing Huang noticed when he woke up that morning were the sounds around him were totally different. They were not right. Normally, when he was asleep in his home, he would hear the sound of his mother and father snoring right by him, and he might hear some insects or birds out his window. And those sounds were gone. Instead, he heard what sounded like footsteps, but not ordinary footsteps. They were footsteps of somebody walking on cement who was wearing high heels, like a clicking sound. And then Huang also became aware of the fact that his face was clearly pressed up against cement. He was laying on the ground. But Huang couldn't open his eyes. As hard as he tried, he couldn't do it. He couldn't move his body. And so he's just laying there on cement with his eyes closed, listening to the sound of these footsteps, these high heels, getting closer and closer and closer. And as they did, his anxiety was growing and growing. He had no idea who this person was. And then these footsteps, they got right up to him and then passed by him. And Huang felt the breeze as this person walked right past him. And then after this person in high heels had kind of walked off in the other direction, Huang finally was able to wrench open his eyes, and he sat up and he looked around, and one, he couldn't find anybody. It was totally abandoned all around him. So whoever had those high heels on had somehow vanished in plain sight. And then also, as Huang continued to look around him, it looked like he was in the middle of this city. But again, there's nobody out there. It's like this abandoned city street. All he had in front of him was this clock up on a building that said 1 a.m. And so pretty soon, Huang was just kind of walking in circles, screaming out for help. And right when he was about to just start sprinting in any one direction in hope that help would be somewhere out there, Huang felt a tap on his shoulder. And then the person tapping him from behind him said, "Are you Huang Yancho?" Huang spun around and he saw there were these two men in military uniforms standing there. And for a second, Huang felt relieved. Somebody was here to help him. But then he thought to himself, how do they know my name? What's going on here? And so he asked them, how do you know my name? But the two men didn't answer Huang. Instead, they told him that he was at a Shanghai railway station 700 miles from Beigao.
I'm so
Because how the fuck with the military? Something else is going on. Ain't no alien shit. Because it is nah.
I feel like the only thing I can think of, but then because what I'm thinking,
No.
Because what I'm thinking of, I'm like not saying it like that, but what's so special that somebody wants to like
Twice?
Because I'm like, well, maybe like at night someone is coming in and
How they able to get you? Because
you know what I'm saying.
The home doesn't look big. It looks like if somebody came in, 9 times out of 10, somebody would have heard something.
That's what I'm thinking.
Ain't no commotion. No.
That's what I'm thinking. But I'm like, that's the only thing I can think of. I'm like, but I'm pretty sure his parents, unless they like just heavy sleepers, because you know I always be talking about like my mom. My mom is a heavy sleeper. Child, she's not hearing anything. So, and that's the only thing I can think of. Like someone's coming in at night, scooping you up, taking you off. Are they doing some type of experience? I don't know. It's just weird. It's super weird.
Or they know some shit and they ain't trying to say some shit.
It's something, but again,
trying to make sure that it doesn't send off red flags. So they trying to act as
if
I'm saying
they're
like
there
the family,
to like help or something.
No, I'm saying like family, like we don't know what happened.
You said
they know
like
something's
that.
up, but they have to continue on. Because also you see that the police wasn't urgent enough trying to go find him in the first place.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying. And then now you got military people picking you up. The first time you got these police officers discover you just randomly.
And then now, are you? You know what I'm saying? It's just that's weird. Very odd behavior.
Beyond odd.
Yeah.
Beyond.
These two soldiers, were here to take Huang to a nearby army base. At this point, Huang was so scared, he just didn't know what to do. So he just wound up going with these two soldiers who put him in the back of a Jeep. And then they hopped in and began driving. And they drove him out of this weird abandoned city where he had woken up. And after driving for some time, they arrived at this huge army base that had all these rows of fencing around it with razor wire on top and all these sentries that guarded all the doors. And these two soldiers brought him through several of these checkpoints. And then when they reached the very last one, they stopped the car, they got out, Huang got out too, and the two soldiers that were with him grabbed Huang's shoulders, and they basically led him through the last checkpoint, which was manned by armed guards. And as Huang was led through this gate, the armed guards seemed to not even notice these soldiers or Huang. It was like they were invisible to the armed guards. But either way, they got through the final checkpoint, and then the two soldiers that were carrying Huang led him to this kind of nondescript big building, and they opened up a door, and they began walking down this long hallway that kind of zigged and zagged. It was like a maze of different directions you could go. And then finally, they brought Huang right to this big door that said Division Headquarters over it. And then before Huang could say anything, one of the two soldiers that was with him knocked on the door. And then before anybody could respond, that same soldier reached down, opened it up, swung the door in, and then they pushed Huang inside, and they stepped in after him and shut the door behind them. In front of Huang was this big desk, and sitting behind this desk was a very senior-looking military official wearing a uniform. And this official, when they looked up and saw Huang standing there, they got up to their feet and put their hands on their gun and said, "What are you doing here? How'd you get in here?" And Huang, sensing there was something wrong, threw his hands up to show he was not a threat and pointed behind him and said, "They brought me here." And the military official, who still had his hand on his gun, looked behind Huang and said, "Who brought you here?" And Huang, he turned around and he saw the
motherfucking line.
Chill.
How is he able to get through all these gates?
Right.
Because even going through that, you have to go through checkpoints. Somebody got to, man, some shit just don't seem right.
So the two people that
it's just ghosts.
They're invisible. They're not there. They're made up in his
Whatever
head.
whatever
it is.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm just gonna say that. Whatever it is. Like what? So who? I have so many questions. Who drove the Jeep?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And how y'all getting through these military access points without, like, you're not just ghosting through.
No.
Just your spirit is just, and now voila, here you go. It's, hell no.
This is strange.
What you thinking? You ain't got no idea?
Right now I have nothing because at first I thought I had something, but now
what you have at first?
What I said was maybe they kept coming and scooping him up at night and
Like
doing like
military
experiments,
shit.
like stuff like that. But now since these people that brought you in here not even real, you know what I'm saying?
I was just trying to make sure there ain't nobody, cause obviously folks seeing shit, so I'm trying to make sure ain't nobody, you know what I'm saying?
Like,
we don't see.
what?
You right there, motherfucker. Motherfucker said they seen
I
people.
don't know.
I don't know. Just trying to make sure ain't nobody right there that I can't see it. I can need to smack somebody. But I don't know, man. This is crazy.
Cause I'm really in my head. I'm trying to figure out. You don't have a car. You only have your bike. Your bike is always left behind. How are you traveling?
People gonna
in
say
these short
people
amount
gonna
of
say
time?
extraterrestrials. People gonna say there's aliens abducting him, but that doesn't make sense as far as him being able to gain access through these access points. Or we not communicating through to open this gate, open that gate, get her through this door, get her through that door. You know what I'm saying? Because he himself is a being. He can't just glide through the door. The door has to be open.
Unless he never really went through the gate. And he just thought he did, or he just...
But how? No, shit.
I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it because none of it makes sense.
Like, peep this. Even in the office, they open the door into the office, but actually, obviously, the person didn't hear the door open.
Right? And just pushed him in, and he was like, "Oh, look up!" And
well, they didn't push him in; they walked him in. And he just
he said they pushed him in,
and then he just appeared. They were still there, but he just appeared, and he's like, "How the fuck you get in here?" And it's like,
I mean, at this point, I'm about to be like everybody else.
We gotta be some aliens, huh?
Child, no. Let me just see though.
Him and said they brought me here. And the military official, who still had his hand on his gun, looked behind Huang and said, "Who brought you here?" And Huang, he turned around and he saw the two soldiers who had picked him up and driven him here and led him to this room. They were gone, which was impossible because Huang would have heard them leave. He didn't hear anything. The door never opened. They just somehow were gone. A second later, the senior military official had pulled out his radio and he was screaming commands. And then another second later, armed soldiers came running into the room. They grabbed Huang, who still had his hands up. They came in, they arrested Huang, and they began asking him all these questions about how he got in here. How did you get through the guards? Did you climb the fence? Did you cut the fence? How did you get in here? It's not possible that you are here right now. But Huang did not have any answers. All he could say was, "The two soldiers, they brought me here." A couple of days later, Huang would be bussed back to Beigao. Okay. And again, his friends and family and everybody in town had all these questions about what happened. But again, Huang just had no answers. And then just 11 days after coming back home the second time, Huang would disappear again. And this time he would tell people he encountered two men who told him they were the same two men from the other two times he had gone missing. You had the first instance where he woke up and two police officers in white picked him up off the ground and brought him to the deportation center. And then the second time was the military base where you had those two soldiers who brought him through the gates and brought him to division headquarters. Basically, these two men he encountered on the third trip were saying they were the same men across all three instances. And on this third instance that he went missing, Huang said these two men put him on their backs and they flew him to 9 different cities around China for reasons unknown. And then they flew him back to Beigao and just dropped him off right outside his house near a tree. And that was it. Now, of course, this final disappearance sounds the most absurd because what? He was flying on the backs of people to all these different cities? That doesn't make any sense. But when Huang was kind of aggressively questioned about this third story, because it sounded the most made up as compared to the other two, It would turn out Huang had all this kind of insider information about each of the 9 cities that he supposedly was flown to by these 2 men. He knew the weather in each of those cities on the night that he was gone. He knew what shows were playing on the night he was gone. And he also just had really specific descriptions of where he was in each of these cities when they got there that all checked out. Now, you got to remember that getting that information correct would have been really hard for Huang at the time. He did not have internet access. He didn't have a phone. He didn't have a car. I mean, he lives in an isolated small village in rural China. So the idea that literally the morning after all this happens, he's flown to these different cities, that he would have all this information perfectly correct, that's hard to do. That would be hard to lie about. As of today, no one has ever been able to debunk Huang's stories. Basically, there's enough legitimacy and verifiable information in his stories that you really can't discount them. They really could have happened. Add in the fact that Huang actually took a lie detector test and passed it, and suddenly you're looking at a story that, as crazy as it sounds, really could have happened. And so Huang's story today is considered far and away the most famous UFO story in China's history, because the leading theory here is that Huang must have been abducted by aliens, and that's how he was being moved around to all these places, and maybe those 2 men that kept showing up in each of these events were the extraterrestrials that had scooped him up. Nobody knows, but that is the theory. As for Huang, he wishes none of this had ever happened, because his disappearances and whatever happened to him basically wrecked his life. His fiance broke up with him because she was so uncomfortable around him, and there was a lot of stigma around Huang, especially in the village, where everybody thought he was a liar. And then on top of that, all these news and film and TV crews came to the village because they wanted to shoot shows and documentaries about Huang, and Huang did not want anything to do with them. But again, like, all these people are coming to the village for Huang, and it's making the rest of the villagers upset. And then also there was a really lengthy investigation by the police and by the military to try to figure out how in the world Huang got into that army base. I mean, there were layers and layers of security that he somehow got through, and all those armed guards that were watching the gates said they never saw Huang walk through, even though Huang said he literally just walked through the gate.
That's my biggest thing. How the fuck you just getting through the gates?
That's what I said. He did not go through the gates.
So what, they just dropped his... He said he went through the gate.
That's what I said. He feels as though he walked through the gates, but technically he never
said he
walked
literally
through the gates.
So how the fuck he just end up in the office?
Unless he did walk through the gate, literally.
And they was able to... I don't
And
know.
and somehow, if they are invisible, they're able to disguise you as well. If all this weird stuff happening, like, I'm pretty sure they got other little things that they can do to, like, oh, make sure no one sees you. I don't know. I keep doing it. Make sure no one sees you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because that's the only thing that because I kept thinking that. I'm like, he couldn't have went through these gates. And there's no way that these military, like, you know what I'm saying? Come on now. No.
Security that he somehow got through, and all those armed guards that were watching the gates said they never saw Huang walk through, even though Huang said he literally just walked through the gate with the 2 soldiers that were carrying him through. And so today, Huang actually still lives in Beigao, and he had a son and a daughter, and he has grandkids, but he refuses to talk about what happened to him because, again, it wrecked his life.
Oh. I feel him.
That sucks, though.
Yeah, definitely does.
So that's going to do it. If you enjoyed today...
That sucks for real.
That does suck.
Can't live the life he wants to live. That's
like, just the whole life that you had planned for yourself and your future wife that just was wrecked because of this weird stuff just happening all of a sudden one day that you can't control, have no explanation for, like, nothing. And it just not bothers me, but I'm just kind of like, my brain is kind of like I said in the beginning, why him?
True.
Like what was the reasoning? Because all y'all was doing was taking me, dropping me off random places, scooping me back up, taking me somewhere else, then taking me home. And then it happened again. And then what's up with the third time? Y'all just flying me to different cities. Yeah. Like, for nothing. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know.
What type of adventures are we on?
I have no clue.
It doesn't make sense.
In this situation, I have no clue. I'm going to leave this one up to y'all
most definitely.
to fill us in, because I don't do enough research on the supernatural effects of what could be UFO. I never deep dived into any of that information.
Yeah,
so I can't. I'll be ignorant as hell to even be able to try to comment on. So I'm just trying to understand the story, just like everybody else in this village, to be able to try to even paint a picture of what could have happened.
Or why.
Paint a picture of what he has experienced.
Yeah.
So where's the vehicle he rode in?
The Jeep.
Yeah. Do we see Jeep tracks? It was in the 70s, so it wasn't. We didn't have cameras, so nothing was captured on camera or film. So we don't have that.
Well, the Jeep was only in the second.
I'm saying,
time.
but if we at least got the Jeep information, maybe we can be like validate something. We can't validate nothing. He just pops up in the office.
But we don't even.
And he
know.
said he came from another location to this location, and then now I guess they said, hey, that was too. Now we flying everywhere. See, a lot of shit just don't make sense.
It don't make sense, and we don't even really know if the Jeep situation is actually 100%.
Well, that's what he said. He
I know.
He said he flew, so he drove. He don't know how he got there.
He
in
don't
the
know how
first
he
one.
got there. Yeah.
In the first one, he don't know, but he knew the other two situations. So
I guess it. Yeah, we'll leave it up to y'all.
This is beyond me at this point. So
Yeah.
y'all fill me in. Let me know how y'all thoughts and opinions about it in the comments. Y'all know typically I got an answer to a lot, but this time I have an answer to nothing.
Let me know too, because I definitely want to know. Because I have nothing. Well, I have some, but I have nothing. Okay.
But you had more than I had. You had way more than I had.
Still nothing. It got me nowhere. I still have unanswered questions.
I'm going to say this. One reason, because you ain't never looked into alien activity.
Who?
Oh, you have? Well,
I mean, no, not really.
Shit. Well, if you done did more research than me, then my bad for speaking. I've never done
No, I haven't
research.
done any research. I just come across stories like this, and then I start deep diving and I just read those stories. But I don't do any research to be I don't know.
The only alien story I've ever looked up and did was the time that we did a video on him. And we looked up the other
with
stuff.
the burn marks and all that.
To cut out the genital.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I looked at.
Yeah, but other than that, no. I really don't think about.
Yeah. Some people do though.
But a lot of people do.
So we need y'all to fill us in the comment section down below, man. Let us know y'all thoughts and opinions about whatever has happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have no clue. But as always, I do go over the name DJ Kid and Sis.
Here the host,
we are.
Kid and Sis.
Yeah. Go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my folks. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar, 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 dollar. Let me